One day I was uploading a video and I looked at myself. I couldn't recognize myself. And I felt fake. I felt small. I said, I am talking about fitness. What is my fitness? I am 14 kilos overweight. I barely recognize myself. I'm teaching little children how to be fit. And that was my aha moment. So many women told me they didn't know there was a phase called perimenopause. They only knew that there is menopause and there's puberty, then there is the mid years, the birthing years, and they said perimenopause kya hai? I learned from you.
I'm curious to know, is there a menopause equivalent for men?
There is a menopause equivalent for men. It's called
Weight gain in menopause is unavoidable. True or false?
Once you hit perimenopause, you should avoid high intensity workouts. Is that true or false?
absolutely false. You should double up on high intensity work.
Midlife, once painted as the beginning of decline, now being reclaimed as a season of strength, reinvention, and vitality. But for many women, perimenopause and menopause still carry whispers of silence, myths, and generational taboos. Today, the narrative is shifting, though. Fitness, nutrition, and movement are no longer optional. They're actually essential tools for thriving and not just surviving. So how are women in midlife rewriting their own health stories? And how have those conversations evolved across generations? Hello, everyone. My name is Goldie, your co-host for this episode.
And I'm Lakshan, your other co-host for this episode. And this is episode 49 in the Gen Gap podcast.
We're in season 2 of our podcast, also coming to a close end. This season, we have invited interesting people with very interesting perspectives to share their expertise with us. And today, we are delighted to welcome our guest, Kavita Kanakia. Kavita is a fitness coach who specializes in helping women and men navigate the transformative years of perimenopause and menopause. With a unique focus on basic movement and nutrition, she empowers women to embrace strength, balance, and well-being in midlife. Through her work, Kavita is dismantling, quite literally, outdated myths, encouraging open conversations across generations, and showing that fitness isn't about restriction or extremes. It's about building sustainable habits that support health and confidence at every stage of your life. Kavita, it is such a pleasure to have you today. Welcome. How are you feeling?
Goldie, I'm feeling amazing. I'm feeling so nice and welcomed by you. And I know both of you from before, so that makes me feel very comfortable. I've been following the Mind the Gen podcast, and season 2 is so exciting because you have honest, real, transparent conversations with people, and that gives a certain character to the podcast. It brings a fresh perspective, and you can actually transcend what is happening between these generations and between the generations. And no matter what the topic is, there is a generational angle to it. And that is so exciting about your podcast. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you.
We are humbled by your words. We introduced you and you introduced us even better. Thank you. The generosity is reciprocal. You know, as you were rightly saying, we encourage authenticity on this podcast, and you definitely have been, asked to be your authentic self today, and you started off with it. So, lots of gratitude to you. We want to, dive deep and have a meaningful conversation today. So I think it's really, really important to understand a little bit the motivation and your backstory, because I think this is what brings a lot of your life into the conversation. What drew you to focus specifically on midlife women and menopause in your coaching practice? Was there a personal experience perhaps that you noticed in your family or community that may have sparked this path?
So, Goldie, you want honesty? The honest answer is it was an accident. Okay. So I never started out to want to change the life or perspective or the journey of midlife women. I started Transform with Kavita to give hope to a lot of individuals, man, woman of any age, that it's possible to find and work towards your best physical self at any age, at any stage in life. And that was the objective of my coaching practice, Transform with Kavita. But because I had a very personal journey and which happened in my perimenopause years, and I spoke out of this experience and I inadvertently attracted women and people through through my voice, through my posts or whatever I said came from my life experience, which was in this period of life. So I ended up attracting people to me. It's like as if my niche found me and I didn't find my niche. So, and then of course, I do serve a lot of people, a lot of different clients, but it's growing in numbers. This segment of people is growing in numbers. And your second question, was it a personal journey? It was a deeply personal journey. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't that. I wouldn't be a coach at all if it wasn't for that. So the backstory is a little long. You'll have to give me spare a few more minutes, especially Lakshan, because this is something that you may have never faced in your life, but Goldie can relate to that. So I was already in the fitness field for over 2 decades. So you can imagine 20 years of experience. I got all my certifications in fitness. They were all endurance based. Some were strength certifications. Some were, get out of curiosity, I have collected over the years. Now, a stage came in my life. This was in 2020. In spite of being a fitness coach who's supposed to have all the answers, I started gaining weight. I ballooned to about, I put on 15 kilos. It was all visceral fat in the stomach. I was teaching children aerobics and fitness, and that was the COVID time. I also faced hormonal changes. I had a condition called endometriosis, where you bleed heavily and your periods are very heavy and uncomfortable. And it was COVID time, so the classes that I was taking physically, I was a physical teacher in a school for 14 years. I was teaching little children about aerobics and fitness. I had suddenly stopped because we weren't going to school and I was making these online classes. One day I was uploading a video and I looked at myself. I couldn't recognize myself. And I felt fake. I felt small. I said, I am talking about fitness. What is my fitness? I am 14 kilos overweight. I barely recognize myself. I'm teaching little children how to be fit. And that was my aha moment. I said, if I don't do something about it now, I want answers. I want to change this narrative. I want to do something about it. And of course, that was my moment to kickstart my journey. I found a coach. I educated myself. I got certified. And that's how Transform with Kavita happened. So it is a deeply personal journey.
I always appreciate it when coaches reach out to other coaches for their own development, and I think it's testament to the work that you do to find someone to invest in to help you get back to no longer feeling like the fake self and really operating as you are, right? That's something I really want to appreciate. I know it's not a very easy thing to do. Like even us coaches, we find it very hard to accept that we also need help and ask someone to coach us and engage with them. I like what you said about your niche found you, right? And there's so much again for me to learn about this thing. I may know more than the typical man, but that's not saying much. There's so much more to know and so much more to learn. I'm curious to know when you found yourself in this space, and I also heard you say that the numbers of this particular cohort of women is growing. What are the gaps that you saw in the fitness nutrition space that weren't serving women in the perimenopause and menopausal phase of their lives?
So, Lakshan, there were no gaps. There was a big fat hole. There was nothing. So there was nothing. At least in India, there was nothing. I had to look at my Western midlife sisters. There's a Dr. Stacey Sims. A shout out to her. Amazing work that she's doing. There's a Dr. Mary Claire. There is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. These are the women who've been talking about perimenopause. And Dr. Stacey Sims says women are not small men. We are different people with different bodies, different hormonal systems, and we operate with a different operating system completely. So there were no gaps. There was no information. There was nothing. Or maybe I didn't look for it. I only started looking for it when I needed it. So this is something that you won't read up about. कि बाद में when I get into menopause, I will apply. You just deal with what is going on in the present moment for you. So I found a big fat hole, and I had to go digging and finding it out. There's not much in terms of conversation that's happening in India. It's changing. It's changing a lot over the years, but I had to look at my Western midlife sisters.
I think there's two things that I'm, really absorbing here, Kavita. One is your deep self-awareness for the mirror that you saw of yourself, in 2020 when this video you uploaded, and the vulnerability with which you faced what you saw and then asked for the help. Like Lakshan said, it's admirable when coaches do that, because we can fall in the traps of thinking we know it all. And then what I'm hearing is you recognize this is actually a big hole. There was no gaps. It was just one big void that you had to go and nourish and educate yourself. And I somewhere along that conversation heard you say, I wish that this was education that had come before, because perimenopause is not something that just comes as an onset from one day to another, right? I can speak for this. It is an ongoing education that very quietly creeps into your life. It's a situational thing, which is a process, but you can't get to it and then start taking action. It's a very much a proactive process, which is something I'm hearing you sort of speak about. And I want to take the opportunity to say that perhaps you are a pioneer in India to be speaking more about this, which is helping not women who are already perimenopausal, but even today, thanks to this podcast, hopefully, women in their 20s or, early 30s who need to listen to this to get themselves ready. And that brings me to my next question, which is the conversation around menopause. How has that changed, do you think, or is changing compared to, your mom's generation, or even, even the younger lot who still are not there yet? So the pre and the post, and us being in the middle.
So my mom never had a conversation with her mom. She just knew that one day the periods are going to stop and it will happen. So some of the good things that mom said when I spoke to her about this is that she said that we took it as a part of life. We didn't give it so much importance. कि अभी perimenopause आने वाला है. So many women told me they didn't know there was a phase called perimenopause. They only knew that there is menopause, and there is there's puberty, then there is the mid years, the birthing years, and they said perimenopause kya hai? I learned from you, and I didn't know it existed. So my mom's generation, nothing. They didn't speak about it. Now women today are speaking about it. They want to know more. They want to know the changes that are going to happen in their body, and they want to know how they can be better prepared. Conversations are definitely happening. They're more transparent and open today. And another thing I'll tell you, because my mom got married early, had me early, when she menopaused, I was having my first child. So she was already a grandmom at 51 or 52. So there was probably, she already felt that she had lived an entire life, and by 51 and 52 she has to fade away and taper down. Whereas at 51 and 52, I'm lifting weights, I want to wear a short skirt, I want to look good, not for somebody else, but because I don't feel I'm fading anywhere. I feel I'm very much at my prime. Maybe also I found my calling or passion maybe a little later in life. So I don't feel like fading away anyway. So that has definitely shifted. So mom said, I never even thought about it. Whatever happened, I accepted. And I went on, and I was a grandmom. She was playing the role of a grandmom. I'm nowhere close to being a grandmom. I'm not even close to being a mother-in-law. So that has shifted across the generations. And my daughter's even more curious. Of course, not about perimenopause and menopause, but she has so much information about when her cycle is going to come. When is she ovulating? There are calendars. You can mark your calendar. You know when your period is going to come next. She can plan a racing event. She can plan her life. She can plan everything. She doesn't have to get stocked out of sanitary pads, for example. She knows it's going to come now. So that is the difference across the generations.
I think midlife is the new life now,
Yes.
especially coming as I hear you speak.
And one thing that's coming up for me is something that you mentioned about, it's almost as if when your mother became a grandmom, it's like, okay, I'm entering that phase of my life, my grandmom now. Let me just kind of withdraw almost. And you're like, no, I still feel like I'm in the prime of my life. And you're taking the active effort to operate that way, right? Of course, this clearly tells me that the way that we viewed health or exercise or fitness or whatever you want to call it has also changed across the generation with respect to women as well, right? When you think about the kind of advice that you were given with respect to fitness, your generation rather, what kind of advice were you given and how has it changed from your generation to the current generation?
Health and fitness, both nutrition and so I remember when I was growing up as a teen, I would buy these Jane Fonda videos and push it into the VCR. I would wear these leotards with long socks and try to do some kind of aerobics. So that was the form of exercise that I would follow in my teens. I was sickly thin, so I don't think there was no conversation of macros or nutrition or protein or carbs. None of that was there when I was growing up. But one thing was good while I was growing up is that we ate home cooked fresh foods. There was no processed, packaged food, hyper palatable, ultra processed food coming onto the table. And eating out was over the weekends, once in a way. We ate clean, fresh food made at home. Didn't pay too much attention to nutrition, and it was mainly cardio that we did, and whatever the trends the West followed, I remember doing all of that. Now of course people are understanding macros and micronutrients and the importance of protein, the importance of working out, importance of strength for women is coming up. But I'll tell you, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, nutrition and its importance is coming up. On the other hand, there's a lot of ultra processed food, packaged food. I was having a conversation with a friend's mum who's a teacher and who's a principal of a school. She runs a school in Tanzania and she has young teachers who are on her team. And guess what these young teachers wake up to in the morning? They wake up to Coca-Cola or Red Bull. So that is normal for them. And I was aghast. They really drink Cokes in the first thing in the morning? She says, yes, they do. And they don't think it's wrong. So on one hand, there's a lot of awareness and a lot of healthy conversation going on about working out. But in terms of nutrition, we are reaching out to hyperpalatable, easy. I don't know if a lot of young men and women know how to cook, how to put a meal together. It's all takeout and processed food. So there are two things happening simultaneously.
Wow. Coke for breakfast.
Yeah.
That's quite something. You know, as I heard you speak about what you ate when you were growing up versus the high awareness of nutrition today, yet there being a lot of ultra processed food. And then I also heard you speak about a lot of focus on cardio versus today when there is a lot more emphasis on strength, endurance. I think even mobility is taken a lot more seriously today and spoken about. I can't help but ask you, is there in your eyes the perfect formula which intergenerationally we can bring together? So learn from one another. I mean, you know, I do hear a lot of pros from when you were growing up, especially from the nutritional side. And now I hear a lot of education that is being given. However, what I hear as well is people don't know how to cook, perhaps. So what can we offer as a blend from your perspective, given the rich culture that, you know, you hail from, the Indian, let's be very specific today about the Indian culture and how can that benefit? What can we learn in the West from India in terms of health, fitness that has been taught, in this case, to you from your times growing up?
So the West has been smart. They have been taking a lot of good things from India, and they have been taking yoga, for example. There are more Western practitioners of yoga than Indian practitioners. We used to have family friends coming from England and Spain and all over the country, because my father-in-law was a spiritual guru and he had a lot of people visiting us. And they would first thing ask me, where's the nearest yoga class? Can we take a yoga class? So the West is already very smart. They are opening to our methods of eating. The thing that I would say is everyone, man or woman or child, should understand nutrition, understand what you're putting into your body. What is it you're putting? Not just break it down into carb and fat and, protein or whatever, but understand that it's what am I putting into my body? What am I nourishing it with? And understand that fresh and local produce, seasonal produce, freshly cooked food is any day way better than your packaged food. And don't say that you don't have time. Time is becoming a problem. So plan your meals in advance. I help people prep it, whether you're eating an Indian meal or a Western meal or whatever it is. Plan for it in advance. Even if people in India are struggling with the urbanization. So it's not that people in India have it sorted out and the Western world needs to learn something from us. We are also struggling. We are also living a very fast-paced life. It's now a global phenomenon. Having no time is a global phenomenon. So you want the quick fix. You want the Coke, the quick high, the Red Bull, the protein bar instead of a protein meal. So I would say first have a meal that is rich in protein. Of course, you can rely on the protein bar if you're traveling or if you don't have access to fresh food. Yes, but don't make it the main thing. Like protein bar for breakfast, Coca-Cola, followed by some McDonald's for lunch and a takeaway for dinner. No, that is not the way. Have your roti, your sabzi, your dal. But if you're going for a meeting and you're far away from home, then you reach out for the protein bar because you have no option. So you have to be able to marry these two, but don't say either or, and be aware of what you're putting in your system.
Yeah. Wow.
I like the fact that we're not villainizing practicality. Of course, protein bars are convenient. McDonald's is convenient. It's not that ideally, of course, do away with it. But then, when you can't, you accommodate it only when you really, really have no other choice, right?
Yes.
That's what I'm understanding from what you're saying. Yeah. I want to kind of shift the conversation in a slightly different direction. We've been speaking a lot about fitness and nutrition as a whole, and the perspective with respect to women at this point in their career, midlife. I'm curious to know, is there a menopause equivalent for men?
There is a menopause equivalent for men. It's called andropause. The only difference between men and women is for women, it's very stark and it's very sharp. It's just happening zoom. One day you wake up and you don't feel like yourself again. It's very sharp, it's very quick. For men, it's more gradual, but it does happen. The age related muscle loss happens in both the sexes. In women, it's more sharp and quick. For men, it's more gradual. Everything is similar. We also lose bone density. You guys also lose bone density. So everything is similar. The pace at which women decline is very stark, very fast. And the pace at which men decline is much slower. That's the only difference.
Okay, wow. So Goldie and I we speak about these topics quite a bit, right? And I think Goldie, once you mentioned like to your husband about like, something like an equivalent to menopause for him as well. And of course, I did not know the technical. I'm learning this for the first time, mind you.
It's
Man
menopause.
myself.
You're
So
far away from it, no? That's why.
no, but still, I want to be proactive. This conversation is all about being proactive, right? So yeah, it's. I don't know how come these conversations don't haven't been happening the way they should be happening. At least with respect to women and menopause. I've been hearing this more and more often, right? Of course, we speak about this, and I've also been hearing my mom speak about this with her sisters over the phone. So they are.
You're
My mom is
eavesdropping.
she's very loud, so
Speakerphone on. My mom does that. Like, mom, the whole world doesn't have to know.
yeah. So my mom is the oldest of three. Next sister is 5 years younger than her, and the next one is 5 years younger than her. So both of them kind of reach out to mom for guidance in this topic. So I do see that conversation is happening. I really appreciate the fact that this is happening, because it's I'm sure it's not a pleasant experience to go about it yourself. And I don't believe that when the woman of the house is going through this, it's only affecting her. I think it affects the entire house
Yeah.
as a whole. It's a very systemic impact that it has. It's something that I've been noticing.
You know, the fact that, Kavita, you said your mom never spoke about, reaching that stage. And I did hear you say she just accepted it and tapered down in a very organic way, accepting whatever was going on. She had also, recently turned a grandmother. So I think by default, you put your focus on this new role, and that new role comes with a change in body and sensation and everything. And I can't help but think, if women normalized such a stark shift in their bodies, it's a lot less visibly relevant for us to see in men. But as you say, it does happen. All the more reason it's not even suggested or spoken about, between men as much as it also should be, I feel. But the promising message I am hearing is, thanks to media, thanks to these doctors who are coming up and talking about it for women, it's very encouraging for that rhetoric to change, whether it's just between your female friends. So if Lakshan's mom's sisters are having this reach out to, his mum, I can't help but wonder how many more women are doing that within whether their homes, or bravely even having the conversation with some of their partners who are willing to listen. And that is what I'm sensing will help, open this floodgate of knowledge. I want to call it knowledge because it is in the benefit of our own health in the latter, years of our growth. And this brings me on to, a question which I would love to hear your views on: the role of media. Do you think that younger women are proactively preparing for such stages, and even men, thanks to the media and the knowledge they receive?
So, younger women, my daughter's age, they're not even thinking about menopause, honestly. Because,
Yeah.
but the way, so when you talk about any hormonal shifts in a woman's body, for example, menopause is the last, right? Is the last
Yeah.
stage. So you have to have a conversation. Are we talking enough about all the phases of a woman's life? Are we talking enough about periods? Are we talking enough about the childbearing years and birth control? Are we talking enough about, are we having enough about these conversations first? And then we will have conversations around menopause. So menopause is the last in the phase of all the things that a woman goes through. So you approach your periods and talk about the P word first is as important as how you approach intimacy and birth control options and those hormonal shifts. And then you come to perimenopause, which leads to menopause. So if you haven't been having conversations about a woman's body and the changes that are happening all these years, suddenly you're not going to wake up and talk about menopause. You have to start having conversations about every phase in a woman's life and similarly in a man's life. And then you will naturally progress towards these years are equally important. If like my mom was never told about her period and she freaked out when she got her period. They used cloth pads which they used to wash. They had a system where women of the house who have periods, even some homes do it, practice it even today, they are kept aside for 5 days. They do not touch utensils, they do not cook in the house, they do not see, there was a logic behind it. They were asked to rest for 5 days. In the old system, they wanted women to rest. But today, women don't feel the need to rest on their period. They do cycle, they do exercise because they're used to it as part of their life. So there are so many practices that have been passed down from generation to generation. They were made to sit in a room upstairs, my mum says she was made to sit in a room alone for 5 days, away from the rest of the family. And some women really actually liked it. You can ask, Lakshan, you can ask your mum. They liked it because that was their chutti. Mother-in-laws wouldn't ask the daughter-in-laws to work in the kitchen. They would get chutti, monthly chutti. And similarly, I can see a shift happening that now women are working out. They don't, I mean, it's okay. Day 2 is a little bad. Maybe for some people, day 3 is a little that. And the other extreme is women are popping pills at the drop of a hat. 4 pills, 5 pills every month for a period. So my mother would say, honey, chill. It's okay. It's only a period. Take a hot water bag, calm down. Don't go for that yoga class today or don't do aerobics today. Eat well, take iron rich food, and you'll be fine. You don't need a pill every time. So the younger generation, oh, they read up and, oh my God, I'm in this phase and I'm in that phase and I need to take preventive medication. They don't need medication. Everyone doesn't need. Some people have very bad menstrual cramps. They need to take medication. So it's very individualistic. So some practices and some taboos are there. Some are not there today. And so I think you have to take it in totality. You can't just look at perimenopause. There's no conversation in perimenopause. There's no conversation in andropause. No. Is there a conversation in general? And then we'll naturally move to perimenopause as well.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How the human body is actually going through change from the get-go. And it's so relevant to speak about these shifts in a more natural sense so that it becomes a progressive conversation by the time we reach menopause or andropause for men. And what I hear in the circling of all this is the importance which holds in having these shifts in a more graceful and painless manner, I would say, thanks to the right nutrition and maybe fitness that can be incorporated in your life, which is where you come in, Kavita, obviously. And our entire conversation, although we haven't put a direct focus on this element of what is the right exercise to do when you're, in this stage. And of course, we'd love to speak on that. But I think so many people know that strength training is perhaps good for you, but so many people also don't know that strength training it's a myth to sort of think that it's going to make you bulkier. That would be like one sort of, it's coming off the cuff for me, and I know that this happens a lot in certain cultures to think that it's not good to lift, weights. And I'm cognizant of time today. And I know that we would love to continue talking more about the idea of what kind of fitness is apt for this period in your life. But I want to have some fun now. And I think we can talk about some myths that are floating around in the world, and especially in this area of your work. And let's just demystify some statements. How do you feel about that?
Let's go.
Yeah?
Bring it on.
So I'll let Lakshan start.
Right, cool. The first myth, let's call it a belief. Let's call it a belief, right? Is that once you hit perimenopause, you should avoid like high intensity workouts. Is that true or false?
Absolutely false. You should double up on high intensity workouts. I'm joking. At least you should have 1 or 2 sessions a week. I would design a high intensity workout. And here's the reason why. Because when you go through perimenopause or menopause, there is one hormone called estrogen. That hormone becomes less. And what is the role of estrogen? The role of estrogen was to keep your metabolism up, to enable you to burn body fat, and estrogen was the one that was holding on to your muscle mass. Now, in the absence of estrogen, or with estrogen levels dwindling down, what should a woman do? She has to deliberately go and do high intensity work. Why? Because she is now providing an external stimulus to the body to say, hey, wake up. We need that heart to work stronger. We need your muscles to work stronger. And therefore, a woman should do high intensity work. Of course, that doesn't mean tomorrow she starts doing from ground level 0. She starts running at a pace of Usain Bolt. No, she works it up, gradually increases her intensity, and then it can be called a high intensity.
I love the way you explained that. It just made so much sense, the connection between the science and how the body responds. Thank you for that. Okay, now I'll go next. Weight gain in menopause is unavoidable. True or false?
False. It's harder to lose weight in menopause, but it's not unavoidable. There are clear-cut strategies that one can use in this period of life, and if you use it smartly, you can. And it will take time to lose that weight if you did put it on. It will take longer than in your 20s or 30s, but it's definitely not a norm that menopause and weight gain go together. False.
That's reassuring as well.
Yeah, I have a follow up to that one. Here's another one, right? Cutting calories is the quickest way to manage your weight at this stage. True or false?
Again, false. Calories is what food is, basically food, nourishment. So you don't need to cut the nourishment, you need to cut out empty calories. So you need to be smart about your carbohydrates, be smart, but don't remove them. So that you need to sit and plan it. And if you are smart, you can eat well and gracefully and age strong, and definitely don't go the cutting calorie route. No, you need energy. You need to eat your food.
Carbs are not an enemy during this
Not
phase
at
of
all.
your.
Not at all. But it's not a free pass to eat as much carbs as you want. Carbs has to be with the activity that you do. So if you're a highly active woman, you earn your carbs. And if you're a sedentary woman, you need to dial down on your carbs. But carbs is not the enemy. How much is the question that you need to answer.
Right. So I hear it's not an elimination. It's about the equation changing in terms of the amounts that you add in your calorie every day.
Moderation, not elimination.
Moderation.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it's different for different women. Like active women may
Yeah.
need to eat more
Right.
carbs. A sedentary woman who's not moving will need to eat less carbs. It's earned with activity.
Hey, Kavita, I'm wondering if this is all applied to men as well. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'll go with my last and then I'll ask Lakshan to give his last one. Women should stick to light weights to avoid bulking up.
So now there's this myth that if women lift heavy weights, they are going to become Hulk, or next morning they're going to become Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is just impossible. It's impossible for women. We don't have those hormones. If a woman wants to become bulky, she'll have to take hormonal injections to become bulky. So no matter how hard you try, a woman can never bulk up. What you see as bulk is the fat that is lying on top of your muscles. So you need to skim the fat so that your muscles or whatever, the six pack or whatever, is visible. So all of us have a six pack, for example. On top of it is a layer of fat. So if we can eliminate that fat, the muscles are visible. So what is bulky is actually the fat that is sitting on top of the muscles. You can't become bulky. You will become lean, you'll become toned, you'll have a better metabolism, and you look kick-ass in that dress, in that short dress or whatever you want to look like if you lift weights.
When I hear this thing, no, women saying, "No, I don't want to go to the gym and lift weights. I'm afraid I'll bulk up and all that stuff." I'm like, bro, I've been going for so long. It doesn't work that
It's
way.
hard to bulk up. It's
I
really
wish.
hard to put on muscle. It's really hard. And for women, it's even more hard. So it's not easy.
Amazing.
So I'll just go with last belief myth from my end, which is that today's generation of women are far better informed and more open about menopause than the previous generations. True or false?
Absolutely, yes. I totally agree. They are far better informed. They know about what's coming ahead. And at least they are very aware of what stage they are in. Yeah, they are. They are far better. They're very well educated, and whether they want it or no, it's everywhere available, that information. And they're very curious also about their bodies. They're curious. They don't let it go. And even if they have a pimple on their nose, they'll go to ChatGPT. I have a red boil on top of my nose. What is it? They will ask. They will ask.
I feel like this conversation has really brought forward even more than, we always advocate this conversation, but far more than usual. It's part of our value system to address, the unspoken conversations that are kind of brewing in people's homes or in their heads. And it's been a pleasure to have you, Kavita, because you've been so candid, it's so open and very real about sharing what really is going through so many women's heads. I think you've translated many thoughts today and put them at the front of, of our minds and voiced them out. So I personally want to thank you before we close. It's going to help a lot of people, especially those that are seeking answers, whether it's, Lakshan's mum or, even mums like mine who are already in 70 plus. But it's just nice for them to have that knowledge, because at some point, I think even empathy rises when you have access to right information. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. And I wanted to say one thing. And remember, I told you, Lakshan, I'll be bringing that up. You have a generation change right here in your podcast. 20 years ago, Goldie, you and I would be talking about this in hush-hush tones. It would be an interview. Lakshan would nowhere be there. The fact that I have a co-host who's a man who's interested in perimenopause and menopause and having a conversation with two women in that stage of life is a testimony to the shift in the generations that are coming along. So that's what I wanted to share, that both of you are hosting Mind a Gen Gap podcast, and you have a male who's in the podcast showing that the generations have shifted and conversations have shifted. Thank you for having me.
No, I appreciate you, Kavita, very openly saying that. And I really appreciate the fact that a lot of work has happened in the last, say, 20 years or so. More conversations have happened, and a lot more awareness has come up. Even like, say, 10 years back, when you're in like school or college or something, women used to be a lot more, again, hush hush tones, speaking about their period also, right? And men, for the most part, I know this because I've seen it, they would be disgusted by the thought of period. I'm like, bro, look, what? Like, what is that? It's not like they're doing anything to you. It's not their fault. It's just how it is, right? So being oblivious is one thing, but being ignorant is, I think that's not right. I think being oblivious can be forgiven, but ignorance, I don't feel that it's right to do that. And especially, I feel these are conversations that are important for us to have, and there are always men in the house as well. So I think it's important for men to know what to expect when their spouse or their parents or their daughters or whoever it is are going through these changes in their body. And as you said, it's happening throughout the entire, from day dot until they hit menopause. All these things are changing all the time, right? And I feel like this is something that's very important for us to be speaking about. And I thank you for acknowledging that, Kavita. But I hope that this episode and the work that we're doing kind of spreads to more men, because I know that more and more of them are listening to what we're doing. I just hope that they also go back home to the women in the house of their lives and ask them, hey, like, I watched this episode on, there's this thing called perimenopause. Like, what the hell? The only peri I know is peri, whatever. Like, genuinely go back and ask, hey, what is this perimenopause thing? And learn a thing or two, because nothing quite like learning from what's happening in the house, because it's most relevant to their context. So that's what I truly believe. So I appreciate you for saying this, Kavita, but I feel like it's just a start. I hope more men are involved in conversations like these. They can keep their opinions to themselves. I think they don't need to voice that out for now, at least, but at least keep an open mind, ask questions, be curious, and learn.
And I think that now over to our audience, because I love to address them, as we come to a close. You all know that fitness and health has always been a topic that we have delightfully indulged in on Mind the Gen Gap, and today was testament to that yet again. And if you want to continue listening to more on the same, you can hop over to episode 37, What Social Media Won't Tell You About Fitness, and the same on Spotify if you are listening to us today. And at the same time, you will find links to how to get in touch with Kavita in our show notes, so that you know that you can have that conversation with her if this has piqued your interest. With that, we've come to the end of episode 49 of Mind the Gen Gap podcast. I've been your host, Goldie.
And I've been your co host, Lakshan. Thank you so much for listening, watching, and tuning in all the way to the very end.
Muchas gracias.
See you in the next one.
Hasta pronto.
Bye.